Big round of applause for Aaron Naparstek. Come on, Aaron Naparstek. Thank you. So it was December 2001, and I was living in this one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of an old brownstone on Clinton Street in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn. And it was a nice place, very affordable. Had 3 big windows facing the street, got lots of great light. There was just one problem with this spot, and it was the honking. Endless, nonstop car horns directly beneath my 3 big windows. And at the time I was working as a web producer. I was what you called back then a community producer. That was the person who kind of set up and ran chat rooms and message boards and did a lot of the stuff that today you would just call social media. And I was living and working by myself most of the time in this apartment. And I really got to know the honkers in this situation. I could tell from just the sound of a honk, without even seeing it, what kind of vehicle it was. So the sort of the bright major chord with a bit of a dual note, that was the Ford Crown Victoria, the yellow cab. Real blood pressure spiker. The deeper, more bone-jarring, discordant honk, that's the Lincoln Town Car. One of the worst sounds in the world. I got to the point where I felt like I could understand the honks. Like I could translate this awful monosyllabic language into actual thoughts and feelings and meanings. So the sort of the quick honk honk over there by my living room window, that's somebody saying, "Hey buddy, the light turned green." The deeper honk over there by my bedroom window, that's somebody who's like 8 cars back and can't really see anything and is like telling the guy in front, "Yeah, you should run over the pedestrians because we got places to go." So I thought I'd heard pretty much all of the honks that you could hear on Clinton Street, had cataloged them, knew them. Then one day, I was sitting down to work on a mindfulness and meditation website that I happened to be producing at the time. And I hear this kind of honk that I've never heard before. It was essentially just a honk. You get the idea. Whereas most honks have a clear start and end point, this honk was just infinite. It didn't stop. And so I eventually, as the honk sort of passes the 3-minute mark, I come up to the window to see what's going on. I look outside, and I can tell it's coming from this blue sedan directly beneath my window. And I look up the street, and I see, okay, some guy is badly double parked. He's tying a Christmas tree to the top of his car. He's causing this traffic. But then I notice that this honker is actually honking at a red light. He's honking at a red light and a Christmas tree. And this just seems unacceptable. And I decide in that moment I'm going to my refrigerator and I'm getting a carton of eggs. And I'm returning to my window. And if this honk is still continuing, by the time I get back to the window, he is getting an egg on his windshield. So I return to my window and I start pelting because the honk is still going. And my first egg misses, but I was a pitcher in high school. I feel like I've got this. My second egg explodes across the roof of the blue sedan in this very satisfying thud. And it stops the honk. And I probably could have left it there. That could have been it. But I kept throwing. I kept throwing the eggs. And now the honker is out of his car, and by the time the egg is actually splattering across his windshield, he's standing in the middle of Clinton Street. He's staring up at my 3rd floor window, and he is going completely ballistic. And he's like a middle-aged guy, balding, 40-ish, indeterminate ethnicity, and his general message to me, which I will have to paraphrase, is, I am coming back tonight, I am going to kill you, and I know where you live. So clearly a flaw in my plan that I had not thought about ahead of time. And the guy drives off, but I'm just shaken. I'm so agitated, and I can't focus for the rest of the day. I can't focus for a couple days, and I find myself milling about my apartment, looking for household items that would make for good self-defense weapons. I actually went to sleep with a large plumbing wrench next to my pillow, and I realized, like, I need a different way of handling the honking. And so the next time it really starts to bother me, I decided to take some advice from my meditation and mindfulness website that I'm working on. And I decided to sort of sit down, take a deep breath, and just observe the honking on Clinton Street. And then I take those observations and I start boiling them down into 3-line, 12-syllable, 575 haiku poems. And I call them Honku. And it feels good to do this. It feels good to write them. And my first Honku was this. You from New Jersey, honking in front of my house in your SUV. Just simply a snapshot. The essence of Clinton Street. And this really pleases me. So I print up that poem. I print up 50 copies of that poem. And I go out very late at night because I'm sort of embarrassed about this. And I tape the honku up and down Clinton Street on the lampposts, many blocks in either direction. And this kind of becomes my regular honking therapy regimen. So whenever the honking really starts to bother me, I sit myself down, I write some honku, and toward the end of the week, I pick my favorite one from the latest batch, I print 50 copies, I go out very late at night, I tape them up. It feels like I'm sort of honking back now in my own quiet way, and I have some like power over the honkers. So one night, I'm out there taping up my honku. I've been doing this for about a month, and I'm still very kind of surreptitious and a little embarrassed about it. And I turn around, and I see that a woman is standing right there. She'd been out late walking her dog. And she sees me standing there, caught red-handed with my heavy-duty tape dispenser. And I brace myself, and she comes up to me, and she says, "Excuse me, but are you the bard of Clinton Street?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I guess so." And she gets very excited. She's like, "Well, we just love your work. It's fantastic. We're so sick of the honking, and my daughters, they're now writing honku too. Would you sign one? Could I get your autograph? My husband would love that." So, as I make my way down Clinton Street that night, I notice that a few other honku written by strangers have popped up on the lampposts. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And over the next few days and weekends, many honku blossom on the lampposts of Clinton Street. And I realize suddenly, like, okay, I'm not alone here. There are other people. And the next time I go out posting honku, I decide to put a website address on my poem, honku.org. And at honku.org, I create a message board. I do my online community producer thing. And I create a message board. I call it the lamppost. And within days of putting this thing online, there are dozens of neighborhood people, and they're hanging out on the online lamppost. They're chatting with each other about problems in the neighborhood, trading honku, talking about solutions. And I say, guys, like, why don't let's get together in person. Let's meet in person. Why not? Saturday, 11 a.m. on my front stoop, come on out. And about a dozen people actually show up. And it turns out to be this like great, diverse, funny, smart group of people who we've all been living next to each other, in some cases for years, and had never actually met. And we're kind of having a good time, and someone notices on the lamppost on my own corner, there is a sign very high up that says, "No honking, $125 penalty." And I've seen this thing here before, and I'd never really thought much about it. But everybody kind of gets excited about it. Like, hey, the law is on our side. Like, let's make this city live up to its no honking ideals. And so that afternoon, I go home, and I type up some letterhead for something called the Honku Organization. And I start firing off letters to my local elected representatives and community organizations. And I start attending community meetings, too. I show up at the monthly community meeting of the 76th Precinct, the police station. It's probably the least .com place you can imagine. It's got the puke green subway tile on the walls, the fluorescent lighting, the burly mustachioed cops. And at the community meeting are about 20 neighborhood people. I'm easily the youngest person in the room by a good 20 years. They seem like regulars. I'm really nervous. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? But the first guy stands up, and he's like, look, this new bar that moved next door to me, it's making too much noise. Got to do something about it. Woman stands up, and she's complaining about the speeding and the double parking on Court Street. Next guy stands up, he's angry about his neighbor's dogs barking all the time. And it slowly starts to dawn on me, these are my people. Like, I have found the place that possibly where I most belong, like in this meeting. And I'm kind of getting up the nerve to raise my hand and speak when in walks this 6'5" tall, smiling, bearded guy, very late into the meeting. And the commanding officer of the precinct is like, hey, everybody, welcome our brand new city council member. He's just been on the job for a few weeks now, Bill de Blasio. Come on in, Bill. And if you recognize the name, he is now the mayor of the city of New York. And Bill sits right next to me. And I notice on the stack of papers on his lap, at the very top of the stack is a piece of letterhead from the Honku organization. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait and see what Bill does. And he takes the floor immediately, as they do. And it's almost like Bill is my downstairs neighbor on Clinton Street. He goes into like the most perfect description of the honking crisis. It's not just a minor quality of life issue. This is a serious public health and maybe even a safety issue. And he firmly but politely asks the police to get out there and enforce that no honking sign. Police say, how's a 3-week no honking blitz on Clinton Street sound to you? And I'm like, that sounds incredible. The next Monday morning, for the first time in as long as I can remember, I oversleep. I do not wake up to the sound of horn honking on Clinton Street. And when I do finally wake up, I jump over to my window to see what's not going on. And I see guys from the 76th precinct are standing there, and they're talking to every single driver coming up Clinton Street. And, the Honku organization, I'll just be honest with you, we did not accomplish our ultimate mission of ending horn honking in New York City. Like, that battle is still there to be fought for someone else. But we did actually start to make a bunch of different changes and fixes on Clinton Street and the streets around it. And this actually kind of became my work and my career, doing advocacy and community organizing and media to make cities better for pedestrians and cyclists and transit riders. The real success, though, of Honku, the thing that I think was most significant was just that when I was walking down Clinton Street, and when my neighbors were walking down Clinton Street, instead of sort of being in our little bubbles of honk anger, we started talking to each other. We could say hi to each other. We were working on something together. We were really trying to fix something. Clinton Street wasn't just a street anymore. It was a neighborhood, and we were really producing community. Thank you.
Aaron Naparstek, come on.